Hello, movie buffs, everyone. I'm going to tell you all the most interesting things, without spoilers. Okay, a few spoilers, but just to keep it interesting. Let's go. The events of the film unfold 16 years after the death of the famous Marcus Aurelius, in an era when the reins of the Roman Empire are in the hands of two brothers, Caracalla and Geta. During this difficult time, Lucilla's son, named Lucius, leads a modest and inconspicuous life in Numidia, in the last stronghold of freedom, a city that has not yet submitted to Roman rule. However, the peaceful life of Lucius and his associates is threatened when the Roman army, led by Marcus Acacius, Lucilla's husband, approaches the walls of their city. The brutal siege and the subsequent assault become tragic for Lucius. In a bloody battle, he loses his beloved wife, becomes a prisoner, and turns into a gladiator, deprived of freedom and forced to fight for his life in the arena. Fate, it would seem, had prepared for him only suffering and an inglorious end. On the very first day of the gladiatorial games, an unexpected event occurs that changes everything. Lucilla, carefully watching what is happening in the arena, suddenly recognizes one of the gladiators as her son Lucius, whom she considered dead a long time ago. This discovery comes as a real shock to her and forces her to rethink everything that is happening. Lucilla realizes that her son is in grave danger, and she must do everything possible to save him. Lucius's master, a certain Macrinus, a greedy and unscrupulous man, learns of the existence of a secret Republican conspiracy organized by Lucilla and Acacius. He understands that this information can bring him great benefits and decides to use it for his own purposes. Macrinus reports the conspiracy to the emperors Caracalla and Geta, hoping in this way to gain their trust and gain a high position at court. His plan works, and the emperors, worried about a possible conspiracy, begin to trust Macron and bring him closer to themselves. Thus, Macron becomes a trusted person of the emperors, gaining access to important information and the opportunity to influence their decisions. Intrigues and betrayals begin to weave around Lucius, putting his life in even greater danger. Upon learning that her son has become a gladiator, Lucilla realizes that she must act quickly and decisively to save him. She understands that appealing to the emperors to pardon Lucius may be useless or even dangerous, as it may draw attention to her conspiracy. Therefore, she decides to act secretly, using her connections and influence to help her son avoid certain death. However, her actions do not go unnoticed. Macrinus, who has become a confidant of the emperors, watches Lucilla's every move, suspecting her of disloyalty. He realizes that Lucilla may pose a threat to his position at court and decides to use Lucius as a means of putting pressure on her. Macrinus begins to plot to discredit Lucilla in the eyes of the emperors and deprive her of influence. He spreads rumors about her ties to the Republicans and her plans to overthrow the imperial government. The emperors, concerned by these rumors, begin to doubt Lucilla's loyalty and gradually remove her from important state affairs. Thus, Lucilla finds herself in a difficult situation where she has to fight for her son's life and for her own safety, while simultaneously trying to keep her conspiracy a secret. She understands that she needs to act carefully and thoughtfully to avoid making mistakes that can lead to disastrous consequences. At this time, Lucius, being in the arena, is forced to fight for his life every day. He shows incredible strength and endurance, defeating one gladiator after another. His successes in the arena attract the attention of the audience and the emperors, who begin to admire his courage and bravery. However, Lucius's fame has a downside. Macrinus, seeing that Lucius is becoming more and more popular, realizes that this may interfere with his plans. He decides to get rid of Lucius by arranging his death in the arena. Macrinus bribes the gladiators to kill Lucius during the next battle. He also orders the guards to keep an eye on Lucilla, so that she cannot interfere with his plans. Lucilla, having learned about Macron's plans, realizes that she needs to act immediately. She gathers her supporters and develops a plan to save Lucius. She decides to sneak into the arena during the fight and free her son. However, her plan carries a huge risk, as her actions can be regarded as treason, which will lead to her imminent death. At this time, another battle begins in the arena. Lucius, as always, demonstrates incredible strength and skill. He defeats one gladiator after another, causing delight among the audience. However, He does not suspect that his opponents have been bribed by Macron and that he is in grave danger. In the midst of the battle, when Lucius is ready to win, Lucilla and her supporters burst into the arena. A fierce battle ensues between Lucilla's supporters and Macronus's guards. Lucius, taking advantage of the commotion that has arisen, frees himself from his shackles and joins his mother. Together, they begin to fight against their enemies, defending their lives and their freedom. The fate of Lucius and Lucilla is in the hands of chance. They will have to go through many trials and dangers to survive in this cruel world where intrigue, betrayal, and thirst for power rule. Will they be able to defeat their enemies and gain their long-awaited freedom? The answer to this question will become known only at the end of this fascinating story. At the center of the action is Acacia, who suddenly finds himself in the very heart of the bloody spectacle, in the arena of the Colosseum. He is attacked by the wrath of Lucius, his wife's son, driven by a thirst for revenge for long-forgotten grievances. A huge crowd, eager for a show, is looking forward to the start of the match. The atmosphere is electrified by the anticipation of violence, and the air is buzzing with screams and screams. Acacius, overcome by conflicting feelings, is faced with a difficult choice. On the one hand, he understands that a fight with Lucius could end in tragedy for both of them. On the other hand, refusing to fight can be regarded as weakness and lead to even more serious consequences. He is weighing all the risks, realizing that his life and Lucius's life are hanging by a thread. His decisions can affect the fate of not only his own family, but the entire Roman Empire. Acacius, showing incredible self-control and wisdom, decides to act cunningly, using his tactics to save Lucius without putting himself in mortal danger. He demonstrates combat prowess, but deliberately avoids delivering fatal blows. He prefers dodging, blocking, and exhausting actions, making it clear to Lucius that he does not want him dead. His actions, although they cause confusion among the audience, gradually change the attitude towards him and Lucius. The crowd, which at first fiercely supported Lucius, begins to understand Acacius's plan. They do not see him as a coward, but as a wise and noble man who seeks to prevent violence. The tension in the Colosseum is gradually subsiding, replaced by a new feeling of bewilderment and respect. Lucius, seeing that Acacius deliberately avoids harming him, begins to wonder about his motives. The thirst for revenge that had plagued him for a long time is gradually giving way to doubts. He realizes that Acacius sacrificed himself for him. In this confrontation, where not only life but also honor were at stake, Acacius and Lucius reach a kind of mutual understanding. However, an unexpected turn of events changes the course of the whole situation. Geta, envious of Acacius's influence and aspiring to power, gives the order to eliminate him. Acacius, who has just escaped a deadly battle with Lucius, suddenly becomes the victim of a conspiracy. Arrows fired from the bows of numerous archers aimed at him turn the Colosseum arena into a place of bloodshed. This unexpected and brutal act of violence is causing a wave of protests and outrage in Rome. The residents of the city, who witnessed the recent peaceful duel, perceive the murder of Acacia as a barbaric and unfair act. There are riots on the streets of Rome, with protesters demanding punishment for Geta and his henchmen. There is an atmosphere of chaos and defiance in the air, and civil strife is ready to escalate into a large-scale uprising. This bloody incident radically changes the political situation. Geta, blinded by his cruelty and thirst for power, does not understand the disastrous consequences of his act. He hopes that he will be able to suppress the rebellion by force, but he is mistaken. Unruly mobs, enraged and ready for anything, demand justice. The political stability that Geta has so carefully maintained is crumbling before our eyes. In this atmosphere of chaos and instability, the figure of Macron appears, an intelligent and cunning politician who uses the shock caused by the murder of Acacius for his own purposes. He understands that this is the perfect moment to strengthen his position. With the help of skillfully organized disinformation, he begins to manipulate Caracalla, creating the illusion of threat and fomenting hostility between the brothers. Macron, an experienced strategist and schemer, uses the shock caused by the murder of Acacius to achieve his insidious goals. He skillfully manipulates Caracalla, whipping up his fears and doubts about Goethe's claims to power. Macron emphasizes the instability of the situation and presents himself as the only one capable of restoring order. He carefully fuels fratricidal intrigue, using the wave of indignation spreading in Rome for his own purposes. His intrigues grow like a destructive mushroom, destroying any remnants of fraternal feelings between Caracalla and Geta. As a result of Macrinus's intrigues, Caracalla decides to eliminate his brother, Geta. This decision, made under the pressure of circumstances and Macron's manipulations, becomes a point of no return. The elimination of Geta opens the way for Macron to power. He quickly consolidates his position, using his sophisticated game and ability to manipulate people. As soon as possible, he was appointed second consul, received leadership of the Praetorian Guard, and became one of the most influential people in the Roman Empire. Thus, the tragic death of Acacia becomes a catalyst for global political change, and Macron, skillfully using the situation, reaches the top of power, laying the foundations for further intrigue and turmoil. His rise to the top is the bitter fruit of not only political intrigues, but also the cruel injustice that befell Acacia. Lucius, despite recent events and personal tragedy, remains steadfast in his decision to change Rome. He sees the empire mired in corruption and tyranny, and he is determined to do everything possible to stop this chaos. His main goal is to establish justice and free the Roman people from the yoke of tyranny. To do this, he turns to his closest friend, Dr. Ravi, who is responsible for transmitting a classified order to the loyal army of Acacia stationed in Ostia. This order can change the course of history, but the task is extremely dangerous. Dr. Ravi understands the risk, but he is devoted to Lucius and is ready to do anything to help him. At this time, Lucius himself finds himself in a difficult situation. On the last day of the gladiatorial games, which was supposed to be a triumph, a new stroke of fate strikes. Lucius is forced to defend Lucilla, the wife of Acacius, from an attack by Praetorians loyal to Macrinus. They surround them in the Colosseum, ready to use violence. Lucius has to fight for the life of his beloved. This ordeal shows his courage and dedication. Despite the injustice of the situation and the significant superiority of the enemy, he bravely enters the battle. However, the strength of the Praetorians turns out to be too great. In this unequal battle, Lucius loses not only his beloved wife, but also any hope of a peaceful settlement of the conflict. Lucilla's death becomes a huge tragedy for him, forcing him to become even more determined to fight for justice. Overcome by anger and a thirst for revenge, Lucius desperately tries to stop the civil war that is already beginning. His plan is bold and risky. In the thick of the action, in the Colosseum, he raises a riot among the prisoners, turning the place of spectacles into the center of the uprising. He uses the prisoners as his warriors, directing them against the Praetorians. His bravery and intrepidity inspire many, pushing them to take action. The battle in the Colosseum rages with incredible brutality. Lucius, armed to the teeth, personally participates in the battles. He uses all his skills and knowledge to face the enemy. However, the death of his beloved woman in front of his eyes from Macron's arrow finally breaks him. He saw Macrinus kill Caracalla with a cold and calculating look, seizing power over the empire. This act of violence finally unties Macron's hands. He becomes the new emperor, and his cruelty and ruthlessness terrify everyone. Lucius, devastated by grief and burdened by the weight of loss, however, does not lose hope. He understands that he cannot allow Macron to go unpunished. The thirst for revenge pushes him to take decisive action. He knows that the only way to stop Macron is by force. Lucius gathers his remaining allies and sets off in pursuit. He won't stop until Macrinus is destroyed. He knows that the future of Rome is at stake, and he is ready to give everything to protect his city. Macrinus, having seized power, directs the Praetorian Guard against the army of Acacius, which is already approaching Rome. A great battle is coming. However, Lucius, torn by a thirst for revenge for the murder of his mother and Lucilla, does not participate in the general battle. He leaves his military units with the task of deterring the Praetorians of Macrinus, and he goes in pursuit of the emperor. He pursues Macron with relentless single-mindedness until he reaches him. A deadly duel ensues between them. It's not just a battle between two warriors, it's a clash of two worlds, two ideas. Lucius, united in his goal of fighting against tyranny and injustice, wins in a fierce battle. Macrinus is killed by Lucius. After defeating Macrinus, Lucius delivers an uplifting speech to the Roman people. He doesn't use words of revenge or violence. In his speech, he refers to the ideals of justice, to Marcus Aurelius's dream of a just Rome. This speech becomes a symbol of hope for the Romans, exhausted by years of tyranny. She unites all the people of Rome, inspiring them to create a new just society. By proclaiming his ideals and promising to protect the Roman people from tyranny and corruption, Lucius prevents a civil war. He reaches his goal, and Rome begins a new age, a time of justice and hope. The memory of the dead, Acacia, Lucilla, and many others, will live forever in the hearts of the Romans, reminding them of the price of freedom. Thank you for watching this video. I hope the retelling of the movie Gladiator 2 was useful and interesting for you. Your support is very important to me.